Bless you, and welcome to another episode of God at Work. We're back, but our theme this time is a subject that's a very difficult one. Its subtitle, as you see, Suicide Kills, and it's a story of a young girl that I'll tell you very shortly. And she was at the point, a 14-year-old girl, she was about to commit suicide when God intervened. And we were in a park. There's a picture here. We were in a beautiful park because that's where we were meeting at the time. So we were here in Moody Park, and that's where this took place. Beautiful park. And for some reason, this young girl liked that park, and she came there to do what she was planning on doing, although she wasn't right from that area. So anyways, suicide kills. Remember that. It's not something you want to even entertain as a possibility or an option. It's deadly. You'll see what happens in this video. God bless you. And here's a song that I think is perfect because we need to be continually looking to Jesus, walking in obedience to his leading and his guiding, because you never know what happens if you don't. There's steps that God asked of me in this particular testimony. In the natural, I did not want to take, but I knew that God was saying go. And when he says go, our response has got to be, yes, Lord, here am I. I'm glad you're sending me. So anyways, Jerry's going to do this song, I Will Look to Jesus.
Whichever way the wind blows, I will look to Jesus and follow where he leads. Though storms may rage around me and wars compass surround me, I will look to Jesus and follow where he leads. He sees beyond the present to a future resplendent, a day with no more sorrow when all tears are wiped away. Though torments have assailed me, his love has never failed me. So I will follow Jesus till my dying day. Whichever way the world goes, whichever way the wind blows, I will look to Jesus and follow where he leads. Though storms may rage around me and wars compass surround me, I will look to Jesus and follow where he leads. Now I can trust no other, no sister and no brother, my father or my mother, unless they follow him, much less some politician, a preacher or musician, no actor or physician, unless they follow him. Whichever way the world goes, whichever way the wind blows, I will look to Jesus and follow where he leads. Though storms may rage around me and wars compass surround me, I will look to Jesus and follow where he leads. Yes, I will look to Jesus and follow where he leads.
I will look to Jesus. and follow where he leads. Well, I showed you the park that this took place in, but it was toward the beginning when I was just in the beginning of the church plant for the church that I was planting in New Westminster. So it's quite a few years ago now. And when we first went to start the church, we were meeting in a hotel, looking for somewhere in the New Westminster area, which is where we wanted to be. And this was this hotel. It was brand new. I mean, literally brand new, just opened. And it had a really nice meeting room. So we ended up renting the meeting room in this hotel for a while. And there's a picture of the hotel here, right out over the river. If you've seen any other videos, pretty much you know I love being by the river. Well, that's right next to the public market that we talked about last week, the boardwalk running along right in front of it. But we met in that hotel for a few months, and then I ended up in the hospital and had some things that had to be taken care of. And in doing so, I was really spending a lot of time praying. And I knew that God was calling us to reach out to the homeless, to the addicts, to the prostitutes. And I knew if they tried to come in the doors of that hotel, they wouldn't have got past the front door, let alone up into the hotel, up the elevator, up to where the meeting room was. They wouldn't have got there. They would have been stopped by security. And so I knew that we weren't in the right place. And finding a place to rent in that town was not easy. So, God, what do we do? And it was so clear. God said, you need to go to where they are comfortable, to their comfort zone. Means you're going to have to step out of yours, but go to their comfort zone, because they're not going to just come to you unless you go and build a relationship with them. So that's when we moved into Moody Park. There's another picture here of Moody Park and another entrance to it. And it was a beautiful park, but it had an area where there's a little bit of a basketball court, and then it had a big grassed-in area there. And we would go every single Sunday and set up the volleyball nets, the croquet court, and everything else we could do, and invite the people, come on, let's come and play volleyball with us. We need some more players or whatever. And in Vancouver, the first miracle happened there that summer, meeting in the park for us with that church, because in Vancouver, it's known as the city where it rains pretty much 365 days of the year. And we moved into the park. It was around April, latter part of April, beginning of May, and we stayed in the park all the way through May, June, July, August, September. And then we finally had to get another building because it was getting too cold. Now, we weren't allowed to technically advertise that we were having a church service in the park. That was not allowed. But we could say, we're having a sing-along in the park. Come on out and join us, And that was okay. That was allowed. So that's what we did. And we started out with the games in the park, and then we served just very light meal. We served either hot dogs or hamburgers or salads or soups, whatever we could do in the park. We had very limited facilities to do it. So we had to set up a little barbecue grill and Coleman stove and all that kind of stuff to be able to have the meal to serve it to them. And then we would have our sing-along. We had a couple of people with guitars, and we had a little keyboard. It was full, keyboard, but it was run on batteries. You could tell the sound it was going to have, and it did. But anyway, so that's how we started. And over the summer, and those months in the park, because we stepped out of our comfort zone and moved into theirs, many, many, many of the homeless and the street people came to know the Lord. It was amazing what God did. In that little period of time, all these people that came to the Lord, they learned to trust us. They decided that, hey, maybe we weren't so bad after all. And they trusted us in that park. And so when it came to the weather being so cold that we had to do something else, we moved into another little church building. We rented it from them in the afternoon. And at first they were excited because we were renting it. And we had a kitchen. We could still continue on serving the meal for the people, and then invite them upstairs if they wanted to stay for the service. But it got to the point that, we were filling the place with these homeless and addicts and you name it. And their church congregation, when we moved in, it was at 8 people. They weren't too happy that their 8, they were all probably over 70, and they were dying off. And ours was growing with these younger people and the lifestyle they were living, to the point that I got a letter from the board from that church saying, we've decided that we can no longer rent to you because you're causing too much wear and tear on our building. So in other words, me bringing in all of these people off the streets was causing too much wear and tear, too much damage to their building, was their wording. So we had to find somewhere else. We met there for a while, and then the relationship with the people has been built up to the point they trusted us. They would come with us. They would follow where God was sending us to go. But as we were meeting in the park, as I said, I had been in the hospital for a little bit, and I'd gotten out, and I had to be very careful at that point. I was sitting on a lounge chair when a lot of people were just sitting on the ground, but that's all I could do. I couldn't do anything different. And I'm not one that likes to get up in the middle of a service and just walk out. You know, I know what it's like when you're up there speaking and all of a sudden people start getting up and walking out. Well, in this one sing along, God told me, I want you to get up and go to the bathroom right now. But God, I don't need to go to the bathroom. I want you to get up and go to the restroom right now. So when God says right now, I know he means right now, not when I finish doing what I'm doing. And so I headed off, had to get up off this lounge chair and headed over to where the restrooms were. And it was not really inviting looking. There's a picture here of the stairwell to go down to get into the restrooms. It really didn't look very inviting, and that's about as dirty as it was too. And the restrooms were just off there to the right. And I walked in, and there was somebody in there in one of the stalls. And I thought, God, I don't need to go to the bathroom. Why am I here? And he said very clearly, for the lady, the young lady, it's in that stall. And then he showed me her hand. And he showed me a handful of red pills. That's what I just saw. The Lord was showing me. So when she stepped out of the restroom, I looked at her. I said, hi, are you okay? I said, we have some food over here. We're having a sing-along if you'd like to join us. And she said, no, I don't want to do that. And I said, well, I know that God sent me here to this bathroom for a reason. And it has to do with that handful of red pills that you've got. And at that point, her hands were behind her back. And she said, what are you talking about? I said, pull out your hand. And I knew it was her right hand from the picture. She pulled it out, but she had made a big fist. But you could tell there was something in that fist, the way it was bulging, you know. I said, would you open your hand, please? She said, I don't have to do that. No, I said, no, you don't have to. But I said, I know that I wasn't sitting out there with all those people with God telling me to go to the washroom right now for no reason. But he wants to touch you. He wants to see your life saved. And he doesn't want to see you falling in to the trap of taking those red pills that you have in your hand. She looked at me. She said, how did you know that? Nobody knows that I have pills, let alone red pills. I said, because that's what God showed me when I walked into this bathroom, that you have a handful of red pills. And she slowly opened her hand. And there were the handful of red pills, like you can see in the next picture. A handful of red pills. And she was about to take them. And I said, you know, it's not worth you taking your life. You know, committing suicide is usually somebody's making a permanent decision based on temporary emotions. People that are passing through a time of temporary emotions make that decision to take their own lives because of what they're going through. Not even really thinking of the consequences. That's a permanent decision based on temporary feelings and emotions. And they're usually so tied up in what's going on in their life that they're not thinking of how it's going to make their family feel, how those around them are going to feel. But that's what she was doing. And I looked at her and I said, you know, life is worth living for you. You might not feel it right now. And then at that same point, the Lord showed me that she was pregnant. 14-year-old girl. And I said, you know, being pregnant is not the worst thing in the world. could have this a beautiful little child. But if my parents find out that I'm pregnant, they'll want to kick me out of the house. And it would be so embarrassing for them. As I said earlier, she'd come from another area of Greater Vancouver out to that park where we were. And she said, my parents are both well-known lawyers in the city circle where we are, where we live. And they would be so afraid of what me being pregnant would do to their reputation that I can't go through with it. I can't go through with it. You know, and I said, there's many ways that you can go through with the pregnancy. Even if you decide it's not for you to keep the baby, there's many loving homes that would love to take on a little child. People that have been struggling for years to be able to have a child and not been able to get pregnant. And now you're blessed with this little baby that if you decide you're not going to keep it, you don't want to keep it, don't kill it. Let it live for somebody else. And by this time, she was just bawling. The tears were streaming down her face. She said, but I can't even tell my parents. And pretty soon, they're going to know. She said, I'm already getting a little bit of a belly. I mean, she was so tiny, you couldn't have told she was pregnant, even if you'd really been imagining. But anyway, she was sure that she was starting to look really big. And so I said, well, look, you know you're going to have to tell your parents. And I'm willing to help you in any way that I can. Would you come with me? Would you come with me when I talk to them? I said, sure, I'd be happy to. So I agreed to meet her at a coffee shop right near that park the next day, and we went over to where her parents lived. And her mom was home. Her dad wasn't home at that point. And so we talked with her mom. And I asked the girl to go to her room so I could talk with her mom. After she told her mom made a comment, which was exactly what the young girl had said to me in the bathroom, about how embarrassing it would be for their reputation if their little daughter, 14-year-old daughter, was pregnant. How embarrassing it would be. And I looked at the mom after the girl went to her room. I said, you know, that's exactly the words your daughter said to me yesterday when I met her in the park. I said, that's exactly what she said, that you would be so angry and upset and mad because she was going to be an embarrassment to you, that she wouldn't be good to your reputation. But not only did she say those words, she had a handful of red pills that she was contemplating taking to take her life. She was out in that park in another area, ready to take her life when I walked into the bathroom and found her. And the mother looks at me, no, that's not possible. I said, that is possible. That's exactly what happened. Yesterday, in the park, I was in the middle of a meeting with a whole bunch of people in the park, and God told me to get up and go to the bathroom right then. And that's where I found your little girl, with her hand full of red pills that she was going to take because she didn't think she could go on living. I don't think that's something you want for your daughter. And I know it's not something that she really wanted, but she didn't see any other way out. She didn't see any other way out. She didn't think about suicide, as I said earlier, being a permanent decision based on temporary or passing emotions. All she knew was that she was no longer going to be around to be an embarrassment to her mom and dad. So I said, that's exactly what she thought. She said, well, she can't stay here. Look at what everybody will think. What are they going to think? I said, does that really matter that much to you, what people are going to think? Or isn't your daughter's life more valuable and more important? Well, I left with the girl. She didn't feel she could stay there. The mom told the dad when he came home, and they didn't want her in the house, etc. So she came to my place for a little bit. And when she was at the house, she said, you know, I really would like to call my aunt. I know my aunt's a Christian like you. And you've been so kind. I know she'll be kind to me. And we called her aunt off in Ontario. And her aunt said, well, why don't you come out here and live with me? Why don't you come out here and live with me and your uncle? We'd love to have you come out here. So she did. Flew her out. She went back to Toronto, lived with her aunt and uncle. Right through the pregnancy, she stayed with them after, so that they were there looking after the baby, helping her look after the baby as she was growing up. And to be honest, I don't know where she is today. I honestly don't. I know she went back there. The baby was born, a healthy little baby, and she decided to keep it. She was still talking the last time I talked to her about possibly putting it up for adoption or putting it in a place that it could be adopted, because she didn't feel she was being a good mother. But whether she did or not, I don't know. But what I do know is that what God spoke was for a reason. Go to the bathroom now. Yes, sometimes we don't understand when God's saying something, why. As I said, I had no need to go to the bathroom. And getting up off that lounge chair and walking to the bathroom was not an easy task for me at that moment. I'd already been in the hospital for a month and a half, and it was not an easy time. But when God said go, I knew I had to go. And we need to know if we're really willing to be open and following what he says to do, when he tells us something, when he gives us the information that we need to learn to be obedient, not question God, not say, God, well, why are you telling me to do that? That's ridiculous. I don't need to go to the bathroom. No. Okay, God, I don't know what you got ahead, but I know it's for a reason. When you say now, you mean now, and I'll go. And it changed that young girl's life, just being willing to go and say, okay, God. So often we say, okay, God, here am I, send me. But then when he tells us to go, we're not quite so willing if it's not exactly where we want to go. And God knows how much we can take, what we can handle, and what we can't. And he knew that sending me to the bathroom at that moment was a very important thing that I had to be willing to obey. But that girl, what she really needed to do was to know that there were people that loved her. There were people that cared. It didn't matter what condition she was in. Yes, she really believes that she made a mistake in getting pregnant at 14 years old. But God had his hand upon her and put her in the path so that she could truly realize and see that there were people that cared about her, people that loved her, just like this next song says. Ain't it good to know? Ain't it good to know you got somebody who loves you? Ain't it good to know you got somebody who cares? That's what she needed at that very moment. She needed to know that her life had value. Her life was well worth carrying on and living, and not to take those red pills. So, Jerry, ain't it good to know?
Good to know you've got somebody who loves you. Ain't it good to know you've got somebody who cares? Ain't it good to know you've got somebody who needs you when no one else even knows you're there? It's like a cool wind that blows, refreshing your soul. It's like a spring rain that falls, giving life to all. And you look around, and that love abounds. Ain't it good to know you've got somebody who loves you? Oh, ain't it good to know you've got somebody who cares? Good to know you've got somebody who needs you when no one else even knows you're there. Through the dark clouds of sorrow, you see the bright day of tomorrow. And as the clouds begin to clear, someone who loves you is near to wipe your tears away. And you hear them say, qué lindo es saber que alguien te ama. Qué lindo es saber que alguien se preocupa por ti. Qué lindo es saber que alguien te necesita cuando nadie más sabe que estás ahí. Oh, ain't it good to know, ain't it good to know you got somebody who loves you. Ain't it good to know, ain't it good to know you got somebody who cares for you. Ain't it good to know you got somebody who needs you when no one else even knows you're there. Yes, when no one else even knows you're there.
Ain't it good to know you got somebody who loves you? And maybe if you're watching right now, maybe you are at that point. You need to know there's somebody who truly does love you. No matter what position you find yourself in, no matter what you're going through, no matter what you've done or what you haven't done, all that is irrelevant. What is relevant is that he loves you. Doesn't matter the position, doesn't matter the condition. He loves you. He loves you without boundaries. He loves you without limits. He loves you unconditionally and wants to be there for you no matter what it is you're going through. So please be ears open, saying, God, I will look to you, Lord, and follow where you lead. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, I thank you so much that, Lord, you were teaching me and are still teaching me to be willing to say, okay, Lord, I don't get it, but I will be obedient. I'll do as you lead. I'll go where you tell me to go. And we all need to come to that point, even if we don't understand, even if we don't get it, that we'll be able to say that according to your word, we will go, we will be obedient. So Lord, anybody needing to hear that right now, I ask that you will speak to them clearly, leading and guiding them. And anybody, Lord, that's thinking and not acting on, but thinking at this point about taking their lives, Lord, I ask that you will touch their hearts to see the reality of the situation that they're living in, that it's only a temporary situation, and they're looking at making a permanent decision based on that temporary situation that they're going through right now. So, Father, I ask that you will touch anybody listening that does need to know how much you love them, how much you care for them. And Lord, you will touch each and every one of us to help us be willing to be obedient when you speak, to go where you say go, to go when you say go, to speak exactly what you tell us, and not fall on our own understanding. In your precious name, Lord. Amen. You know, I can say it wasn't easy when God said, ask her about those red pills. God showed it to me very clearly. But then you can always think, oh, well, that was just me. That was just what I was thinking. But when God does it, in your heart, in your spirit that he's speaking. And so consequently, as soon as I said that, she knew that it was more than just a natural encounter, because I had no way of knowing in the natural what that was she had in her hands. But then she knew how much he loved her and wanted to step in and stop her from making that permanent decision. Because suicide kills. Suicide takes lives. It doesn't give life. It robs you. And it robs all your family members, and all those around are robbed because of your permanent decision based on the temporary situation that you're going through. I'm not saying you're going through an easy situation. I'm not making light of it. But what I am saying is God holds the key. So I hope that this touches you. I hope it gives you the courage to speak out in obedience when God tells you to speak. But for anybody that might be thinking, as this young girl was, it'll also give you the courage to walk through that temporary situation that you're in without making a permanent decision. So I pray that this has blessed you. And it's an encouragement for those of you that need that encouragement right now. But any of you that would like to sow into this ministry, please feel free to do so. Jerry will put all of the details up on the screen. God bless you, and we'll see you next week.